Hey everybody, welcome back to another Saturday afternoon live stream. And I just saw Jeremy's comment pop in just as with the countdown got to around 2 or 1. It said, let's go. And then so that made me chuckle. Welcome everyone. It's Saturday afternoon. It's good to be back. I missed my Saturday live streams during the month of July, but we're back now in August. So I figured, yeah, let's get this get this train back on the track. So welcome. Thank you all for being here. What I want to talk about today, a couple of anomalies that I've encountered this week on my own network. One with a customer's network, but I pretty much got it narrowed down to being the ISP, so I've kind of done all I can do there. So I'll just share that as well, talk a little bit about what's going on my network for the last couple of days. And I just uncovered the root of the problem this morning and was able to get it resolved. So I'll share that. And then the other thing I want to do today is talk about some testing I've been doing with the new GrandStream GCC 6020. Thursday and Friday, I did quite a bit of testing in the lab, and we'll get into that as well as to what I experienced. I ended up having to reach out to GrandStream support yesterday afternoon after what I believe to have found to be maybe a bug. I'm not sure. And GrandStream did respond right away. We did correspond, so I'll share that correspondence with everybody as well. And yeah, that should make for today's live stream. So welcome everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. We'll take a look and see who's here in the comments. We got 6 people here right now and 3 likes. So if you can do me a favor, hit the like button. If you're here, if you're also in the chat and you are subscribed to the channel, please say hello. Let me know you're here. I think I have subscriber only on, but I think I only have it set for about a minute. So if you want to participate in the chat with everyone else, after a minute, or subscribe to the channel. And after a minute, I believe that's how it works. You can participate in the live chat here in the stream. So anyway, as far as weather's concerned, we've had a lot of rain this week, tons and tons of rain, but along with that, we've had a ton of massive heat, like a lot of the country, but our temps have been hitting like 99, 100, with a heat index of 114, 115, and it's been pretty unbearable. But today, it's still raining today, but we're at 77 degrees right now, so I'll take it. It's nice and cool out, and it's a welcome break from the actual heat. So let's jump over to the comments and let's see who's all here. So we have Jeremy here first. Jeremy said, wasn't expecting to see me live, postponing his trip to Home Depot until after the stream, intrigued by the title. Yes, so that was the whole point of the title, was to get people curious to want to come and attend the stream. That's, I had this saying when I was teaching in public education, that if in my whole entire career of all the thousands of students that I've taught, if I touched one, then I made a positive impact in that one child's life, right? Then I was successful. So even if one person saw the title, and in this case it was Jeremy, and it intrigued him to, in this case, postpone his plans to Home Depot and his chores, then yay. Then it was a successful title. I'll take it. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate it. I appreciate you being here, checking out the stream. And by the way, I did watch your members only stream this morning in its entirety, so I'm all caught up with what's going on there as well. All right, so good morning, Grish, and welcome. That's right, for you it's still morning. It's probably 9:30 by you. 935, that give or take. Jeremy says it is 72 there in Michigan. So yeah, like I said, here it's 77 today. Rainy, thunderstorms, but I'll take it with the high of only going up to like 82 degrees today. So yeah, it's nice for a change. Joe, welcome. Tech for Fun. There's no set. The no set behind you looks great. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's nice to have the room back. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that area right now. I might just leave it because I just like having the space, because everything else around here is so much clutter, and then back there. So, yeah, in fact, you'll be able to see some more of the clutter because I added, I had 2 PTZ cams. So I added the second PTZ cam over here to give me a side view. So now I have 4 camera angles in the actual studio. So I have this one, which is the main camera. Then I have the top down, which I've always had, which is the Sony, right up above here is the Sony A6000. And then the rear view cam, which we all know, which is one of the PTZ optics cameras. And then I added this week the side view, so that when I'm showing a product or something like that, I could switch between side view and top down view. So kind of gives me just a little bit more versatility, and maybe hopefully makes the videos a little bit more interesting. So they have been getting a little bit more traction, and I've been trying things with titles to make the titles more enticing to make people want to watch. So yeah, so working with the 4 cameras now. I don't know how much I'll use of the 4 cameras in the stream today, but I have this one right here, and let me show you. I'll use the other PTZ to pan over to that area. Let's switch to that camera, and you can see the second PTZ camera right there on the desk, and it works perfectly there. So, and then what I'm going to show you too, what we're going to talk about later today in the stream, is some of the testing I've been doing in the lab here with the GCC, the new GCC 6020. So I have them set up. I have that set up. Let me just switch over to this other camera. Let me see if I can get around there. So that's where the set used to be, the sports show set. And there's my workbench. And right now I have on the workbench, let me zoom in now a little slower. If you can see as it's coming into view, I know the lighting isn't the greatest, but on the top I have the GCC 6020, and on the bottom that's the 7822P switch. So I've been playing with that. So it's set up back there, and I'm gonna show you what I encountered with the testing. So hopefully that's the focus of today's stream. So we have 11 people here now. We had 18 like 2 minutes ago, but I guess people came on and left. So that's okay. Back to the comments. Keep saying hello before we get started. Yeah, almost 25,000. I think we're at like 24, almost 24,500, I think, something like that. 428, 430, I don't know. And we'll get there. Good to see you too. And well, I'm not seeing you, but good to have you here. We did speak briefly this week, so hopefully we can catch up with that. So Jason, welcome. Glad to see you here. Hope all is well. And Jason's hoping to break 5K by Christmas. Awesome. So, let's see. All right. So the first anomaly this week. on my own network. It was really weird. It's just going to be a little bit of a story. There's not much to demo here with it, but I'll get signed into my GCC 6010 just in case. Let me bring that up there. All right. So this week I encountered something really, really strange with the TV out in my back room. We call it our lanai. It's basically a 4-season room. Hey, we're back up to 17. Awesome. And now we're dropped to 13. Anyway, we got 6 likes and 13 people. So do me a favor, folks, smash the like button. It helps the channel. So the anomaly that I was facing this week here in the network was basically happening with the TV in the lanai. Now, just so you know, a little backstory, I have all of the TVs in the house on the IoT network. So just set the stage there. And for whatever reason this week, it just would, the TV had internet access, but it didn't think it had internet access, if that makes sense. Digest that for a second. And what I mean by that is, when I first turned on the TV, it's a Samsung Smart TV. So let me get that out of the way. The smart apps, the home screen pops up on the bottom, and it starts automatically. It defaults to playing the Samsung Plus, the free live TV coming from Samsung, the content. So it wouldn't get the Samsung Plus content without internet. So I knew it had internet. However, when we use YouTube TV for our regular content. When I would launch YouTube TV, all of a sudden a message would come up. It would launch YouTube TV, but instead of completing the sign in, it would pop back out and go back to the home screen of the TV. And then a message would come up on the Samsung in the upper right-hand corner saying, your TV is connected to the network, but you do not have internet access. So think about that. What the heck is going on here? So I said, well, that's weird because the Samsung TV Plus is streaming in. So we have to have internet access. And sure enough, pulled up my phone, did a quick ping. We had internet access. So, okay. So then I have a second port behind the TV because originally, I ran 2 ports behind each TV in the house when I built the house, 2 Ethernet ports. And I left one port on the main network and the other port is on the IoT network. I said, just for laughs and giggles, let me unplug it and put it into the main network port. And everything was perfect. So now I'm scratching my head. Because then I put the TV back in the IoT port, and bing, I got the message on the screen that the TV was connected to the internet. Connected to the network, home network, but does not have internet access. But yet the Samsung content was streaming no problem on the screen. So then I took that out. I got my laptop. I plugged my laptop into the IoT port, and we had internet. So scratched my head with that one. And for the time being, until I had more time to mess with it, I left the TV on the main network port behind on the wall. Then last night we had some company, and this is when it clicked. This is when, because everything else on the IoT network has been working fine. I have lots of IoT devices, so I didn't think anything of it initially. Last night we had some company coming over. Well, almost everything was working fine. And, we had some cocktails and before going out to dinner kind of thing, and some adult beverages, some non-adult beverages. And I have a whole house Bose system that I control from my phone, and that is also on the IoT network. Well, I couldn't load any of my speakers. I couldn't load any of the music services through the Bose app. So now I'm thinking, Well, my first thought was, I said to my wife, well, it looks like we're going to have to replace the Bose system and go all Sonos throughout the house so that we can match the Sonos system in the back room in the lanai. And of course, you know, she's like, any excuse. But I knew it wasn't the Bose system at that point. I said something was funky with the IoT network. So this morning I came upstairs prior to going to the gym because it occurred to me that I had made a change to the network. Let me bring that up. Let me show you something. It's not a big deal, but let's switch to here. There. Okay. So this is the GCC 6010. And I didn't think it was my firewall rules because up until just a few days ago, things were working fine. But I turned on intrusion prevention. Well, I had intrusion prevention on, but I only had it set to notify me. I didn't have it set. I changed it this week to notify and block. So that occurred to me this morning. I thought, well, maybe some of that traffic might be meeting some of this criteria here. But the other thing I did too was I turned on anti-malware. And when I had the anti-malware turned on, I had the data packet inspection set to medium. I'm not going to save that right now. I want to leave that turned off. And it occurred to me, it's got to be one of those two. So I started first by turning off the anti-malware. And I tested it I had my phone with me by my side, and I launched the Bose app. And with the anti-malware turned on, none of the speakers were able to be found, nor the music services, like I had said earlier. And as soon as I turned off the anti-malware, all of a sudden, all the speakers showed up, and the sound system in the house, and all the music services. So then I went downstairs, and I took the TV out of the main network port and plugged it back into the IoT port behind the wall, and it worked fine. We didn't get the message. We didn't get any of that. So that was to me, that's a weird anomaly, because it kind of makes a little sense now that why the streaming content was coming in from Samsung, but it wouldn't load like the other content, like YouTube TV, even Netflix, it wouldn't load. Because maybe it met some criteria with the anti-malware. I don't know. So I turned it off and everything's working fine. But the other strange thing is the TV worked fine on the main network, and the anti-malware is at the router level, right? It's at the head end. So why? The question I have at this point is, why was it having more of an impact on the IoT side of things and not the main network? Because if it was when I was on the TV was on the main network and I launched YouTube TV, and that's what triggered the bing, you're connected to the network but no internet message. It didn't do that when the TV launched YouTube TV on the main network. So I haven't come up with an explanation for that, other than the fact that turning anti-malware off has resolved the problem on both accounts with the speaker system, the music services, and the TV. And the other anomaly, or the other strange thing about this anomaly is, remember I said when I first started this conversation or discussion, all of the TVs in the house are on the IoT network. The TV in my master bedroom, and the TV in the guest bedroom, and the TV in our main living room were not impacted. I was able to get into all the streaming services, YouTube TV, Netflix, but the lanai TV. So, and that doesn't make sense in my head. But whatever, it's working now. I'm going to leave anti-malware off on the router for now. Although I did have the level set to medium, I might turn it back on and drop it down to low and then see what happens. But I just thought that was very, very, very odd. All right, let's go back to the comments. We have 14 people here and 7 likes. All right. Jason says we have a massive fire here right now. That's not good. I hope you don't mean like in your home, but yeah, no, it's not good. Oh, what does it say? Over 250 acres, I'm guessing that is. Okay, so. Oh, Joe was asking what's a hectare. So it's not an acre. I don't know. I just thought it was a misspelling. I thought it was fat fingers. So Jeremy says a hectare is a metric unit of measurement, roughly 1,000 meters square, 2 or 2.7 acres. Oh, two. So, okay. Wow. All right. 2.7 acres. And Grish is saying about 600 acres. That's a little bit of a discrepancy there, but, and then Grish says, man, we had 2 10-acre fires here. The other, it was bad. We have a small burn. And thank you for Joe saying thank you. Yeah, I hadn't heard that terminology either. So that's a new one for me, but. Jason is so dedicated that there is a fire in his home and he is still watching you. Yeah, I don't think so. And Grace is clarifying the other year. All right. So that is my story on the anomaly here in the network. The other, I thought was weird was, let me see. Let me just log in real quick and see if I can show you. It doesn't matter. I just don't want to disclose something I shouldn't. Just give me a second. So let's go to here. There. Okay, let's see if I can. Doesn't show anything. Yeah, okay. All right, so. The other thing I've been dealing with this week, and I finally realized the problem is on the ISP level, is this is GDMS, Grandstream GDMS, and I only have one device online because I'm not managing my entire network. And that's where part of the title, decisions come in. And this is also going to tie in when I get into the lab testing I did with the GCC 6020 the last 2 days. Because even though I have the GCC 6010 connected here to GDMS, GDMS is not managing the switches and the access points. The GCC is. So the purpose of doing it this way is at least I have remote access to my network when I'm away if I need to get in, because I could just hit the router here and just click this icon over here under operations and it'll log me in, obviously through the portal. But that's not what I'm showing. That's not what I meant to show you. So if you could see here, GDMS gives you a status of your WAN connection. So that's the green line. This is a 12-hour period. So you can see both of my WAN connections are in pretty good shape. Now, I've been dealing with a customer who if you take a look at their WAN connection status, there's a lot of abnormalities, and usually a lot of, if it's red, there's abnormalities in the connection. If it's gray, if there's little blocks of gray, it's completely offline. And I did all kinds of troubleshooting for this client internally to rule out the main network. Because here's the thing. Switched her from a Unify network, which was 8 years old, and she was having trouble with the network, and she had the ISP people come out, and they replaced the ONT. They have fiber going to the house, and then it hands off to copper. And the ONT is on the outside of the home. So the ISP came out and switched out the ONT and put a brand new ONT into place. So with that, the network, she was still having issues, drop-offs. Now the son's a big gamer, so he was having lots of latency issues. He wasn't happy, obviously. Now, I'm not a gamer, so it's like, I guess, but he is, and it was extremely important to him. And I witnessed it myself. I went there, and the TV would constantly buffer. So I did a lot of testing internally with the Wi-Fi, with the this, with the that. I actually re-terminated a lot of the cable connections. And finally, we said, well, you know what? Your system's 8 years old. Let's replace it with new gear. And I moved her away from all the Unify stuff to the GrandStream stuff. And wouldn't you know, the day that I did the network install was the same day, I think it was July 19th, where we had that major internet outage. I forget what the reason was behind it, but I mean, it affected a lot of people. So there was a period of time I think it was in this area, there was a period of time where the network went down that night for everybody for about an hour and a half. And so she called me the next day and she says, ever since you put in the GrandStream network, I've been having, I was like, no, that was a coincidence. You were having the problems before. The outage last night was just, the perfect storm kind of, but the end user doesn't know. They don't understand. So I brought it's a thing with Cloudflare. And I brought the Cloudflare article to them and to the son, who happens to be a little tech savvy, when I went back that next day and did some more troubleshooting, to the point where now I started to suspect, well, maybe the line coming in from the exterior ONT into the house to the router, maybe something's messed up with that along the way. I re-terminated the ends outside and the end inside. The problem was still there. So I took a long cable, 60-foot cable, and I bypassed the regular line, and I just plugged the cable directly into the router and dropped it out the upstairs bathroom window to the ONT and plugged it directly into the ONT. And we were still getting packet loss and issues. So I was like, all right, so that takes the main line, the main line that normally connects the ONT to the router, out of the mix. I don't have to worry about replacing that, because that was the whole idea of testing with another line. So this week, Thursday night, I think the ISP did some maintenance. Must have been doing something out in the field. Well, actually, let me step back. Before that, the final thing I did to confirm that I believe it to be the ISP was I took my laptop and I plugged it directly into the ONT and did some testing that way, and I was getting all the drops. So completely bypassing the internal network, directly connected to the ISP. So somewhere, even though they replaced the ONT, somewhere up the pipeline, something's going on. And so this week, I woke up Thursday morning to over 200 alerts that my clients were offline between the hours of 2:30 in the morning and 7:30 in the morning. And the ISP, this particular ISP, was up and they were down. And they were up and they were down, up and down. And then there was a period of time between 4:30 and 6 o'clock where they were just down. So to me, that said they were doing something. When they came back up, they finally stabilized at around 8 a.m. When they came back up online, I monitored that customer's WAN status and took screenshots and sent them to her saying, this is what your ISP WAN connection is supposed to look like. So obviously they did something to fix it, because for 2 days they had a solid green line with not even a single red abnormality in it. So now all of a sudden I checked it this morning and they are back to like, I'm waiting for the call. I really am. But honestly, I don't know what else I could do for them at this point. So anyway, so that was my second, was first my own little network anomaly with the IoT network and the anti-malware on the router. And then that, but that one's kind of out of my hands, I think, at this point. So, hi, Haley. Thanks for joining. Todd says, I bet the GCC anti-malware uses public DNS block list and Samsung. Yeah, maybe. Makes sense. But again, why just on the one subnet? Right? Because the anti-malware is at the head end, right? So, and I knew you meant Pi-hole. Yep, I knew that. DNS related, well, nothing's changed there. Unless, like Todd said, I got to see and look on the GCC. Let me actually see. Can I see that? Hold on one second. Let me log back in. If I go into signature updates, IPS signature library. Yeah, I can't really see much. I remember seeing all the signature libraries listed, but there's only just when it recently updated and when the next schedule update is. I can't dig deeper than that, at least here. TVJ, hello, welcome. Haley knew you were streaming before me because I was mowing the yard. Well, I wonder if did my stream notification get you out of completing the yard mowing, or did you have to finish first? Yeah, 2 a.m. is a very common maintenance window. Yep, for sure. Only 11 likes and 16 watching shows. Oh, thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Appreciate you very much. Okay. Let's see. We got 15 watching now. Well, just dropped to 12 and 10 likes. Okay. So Haley says, oh, he had to finish. All right. The GrandStream GCC 6010 is my current router firewall. Where did my mouse go? It's gone. There we go. So let me get back into it for a second and bring it up on the screen. Now I want to explain the testing that I've been doing with the GCC 6020 And the problem I ran into, which I believe it to be a bug, and I did report it to GrandStream, and I'll even share the correspondence with GrandStream that I had with them yesterday. All right, so if I go to here, let me bring it up on the screen. All right, so this is the UI on the network node page of the GCC 6010, and I'm under switch management, and these are the 3 switches that I have currently adopted to the GCC. Now, my access points, if you remember back a couple of streams ago, I don't have any APs being managed by the GCC just yet, because they're the original Wi-Fi 5 access points that I had put in this house 3 years ago when I still had the Ubiquiti Edge router and all the Unify switches in place. So I did not change that. I have 3 access points in the house, and one is the main access point controlling the other 2. So that's still as is. I haven't changed that. That will change when I finally decide what I'm going to do in terms of upgrading to Wi-Fi 7 in the future. But then I'll bring everything over. But for right now, it's working, and I'll leave it. So right now, the only thing I'm managing with the GCC 6010 is the 3 switches. And I want to say this. When I switched over from the Ubiquiti Edge router to the GrandStream gear, when I configured the GCC 6010 initially, I set up a bunch of static IP bindings, and I have 5 pages worth of static IP bindings. And there was no way of exporting them from the Edge router. And it didn't really matter because there was no import option here. So I did it all manually. And now I want to swap out the GCC 6010 for the GCC 6020. And I don't want to do that. Well, I didn't want to do that again manually. So the first thing I tried, because the UI is identical, except for the hardware, and there's different configuration on the hardware end, right? I mean, I believe there's 7 ports on the 6010. There's only 6 on the, 6, and I'm counting SFP cages as well on the 6020. So yeah, the WAN information and LAN port information might be different, but I figured if I can, everything else is exactly the same, the firewall rules, all that stuff, policy routes. I figured if I can, first thing I wanted to do was, I didn't want to reprogram the GCC 6020 completely from scratch, but I ended up doing that anyway in the end. Because the first thing I tried was, well, what the hell, right? I mean, the UI is identical. Maybe I could take a backup file from the GCC 6010 and restore it into the GCC 6020. Hey, what could possibly go wrong if I brick the thing or whatever? I just, do a factory reset, right? So that's the first thing I tried. And when I tried, so those of you who do deal with GrandStream, well, let me tell you the outcome. When I tried to restore the 6010 backup file into the GCC 6020, message came on the screen and said the backup file is not in the proper format, and the restore cannot be performed, which is good in a sense that GrandStream has that safeguard in place. And it answered the question that I was wondering, wow, I wonder if you can do this. So now I know you can't do it. So those of you who do deal with GrandStream, and if you end up having clients with GCCs and that you're upgrading them down the road, no, you can't do that. And right now, I don't know of any migration tool that GrandStream has yet that they've come out with that allows you to do. I mean, I know they have migration tools for other things, but that particular use case, I don't think they have a migration tool available just yet. So I said, what the heck? And I ended up reprogrammed the GCC 6020, identical to the 6010. I had them both up side by side, and I literally went through menu by menu, page by page, and made sure the two were identical. So got that done. And yes, I had to put in all the static bindings manually again. So now that I had that done, I went back. Let me go back to here so that I could give you a little history before we get into the testing. My next thought process was, I wonder, is there a way to migrate or move these switches currently adopted to the GCC 6010 to the GCC 6020 without having to factory reset them and program them over again? Because there are things you can do in the GCC series to control and program the switches, but there are certain things if you go into the user interface of the switch and make changes, if the GCC doesn't have that, the GCC won't see it, right? So you can really get granular in the switch UI itself. So there are things you can do in the switch that you cannot do from managing the switches through the GCC. So obviously I want to make this migration as easy as possible. So I thought to myself, well, and there is no tool right now that can migrate the switches, like move the switches from one controller to another. You can do that with the access points. The access points have a takeover, and not as far as takeover device like you see here with the switches. But the access points, if they were managed, I should go into, hold on one second. Let me see if I can find. That's not it. I want to find, give me 1 second. You can look at my audio screen for a second. I want to find the master access point. I want to show you a feature that you can do with the access points that right now you currently cannot do with the switches. So give me 1 second. I just don't remember, and I don't remember the IP address, and I think I have static. I turned my DNS internal off for now. I'm doing something with that down the road too. So bear with me. Let me find the IP address. It should come up pretty quickly. Studio master 202. Okay. Let me just get logged in and then I'll bring it up on the screen. Access points, configuration. Okay. Let me pull this up here. So I'm signed in right now to the main access point, which is controlling the other two, which happens to be the living room access point. And you see up here, it says on these options here, one of the options says transfer AP. You could select your APs like right now, and I'm not going to do it because I don't want to do it. I could select the 3 APs and I could transfer them to ownership to another controller. You can't do that with the switches right now. So I wish you could, but that's not an option. So by the way, I did ask GrandStream. Well, I put in a request. I did basically say it would be nice if you can migrate the switches to another controller in the same fashion that you have set up to be able to migrate the ownership of the APs to another controller. I also asked GrandStream yesterday to if it would be possible to put a import-export feature, so you don't have to manually enter the static bindings. That would be nice to be able to have just exported them from the 6010 and imported them into the 6020. So we'll see. They do kind of listen to feature requests. I mean, I was asking for the longest time to firewall groups, and they finally did that. So yeah, so I figure it doesn't hurt to ask. But anyway, point being is, so back to the switches. Let's go here. Point being is, I don't have a way of taking the 3 switches and transferring ownership to a different controller. So then my thought process was, I have to factory reset them, but what if I save the config file from each of the switches? I do a backup of each switch so I have the config files, and then I factory reset them, adopt them to the GCC 6020, and then restore the settings. I did punch out to Willie yesterday with that idea, because the only thing I wasn't sure of is if there was something in the config file, or if there was something in the settings that would go awry because it would know that it was managed by another controller. And he said, the only thing Willie said was there might be something in, open up the backup file in a text program and look for something that is linking the switch to the controller and just take that line out. So I did that. Well, what I did was, I didn't want to mess with my 3 production switches, so I adopted yesterday the 7822 to the GCC 6010. So it appeared here on the page. Then I went in and I made changes to it, to like I configured, I made a couple of port VLAN changes. I changed the native VLAN on some of the ports, and I added a couple of the labels, like port, like what is the port, name, is it a phone, is it a TV, is it whatever. So I labeled a couple of the ports, and I also changed the native VLAN on a couple of the ports after I adopted it, and then I saved that config file. So that was what I set out to attempt to test yesterday. So that said, let me show you the results, or let me take you through what I found. Actually, let me go back to the comments, because I babbled there for a while. Let's get out of the screen for a second. Michael Burke, hello, thanks for joining. By the way, let's see how many people we have here still. We have 11 people, 11 likes. Okay, so we leveled out. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Jeremy says, why am I hearing the Devo song Whip It in my head right now? I don't know, but if you get those earworms like I do, it'll be in your head the rest of the day. And Todd says, is it possible that the GCC malware uses different DNS block lists for trusted and untrusted networks? Well, that would certainly make sense, but I don't know the answer to that for sure. And you're right, Jay. And maybe they will make a migration tool down the road. I wonder if Haley will let me upgrade to the GCC 6020. Well, again, that's a good question. I mean, and that's between you and Haley. The reason I want to do it is because, well, 2 reasons. One, it'll give me a 10 gig backbone, right, on the network side, because right now the GCC 6010 doesn't have a 10 gig port on it. And if I ever decide to go beyond 1 gig for internet, I have the ability. So my plan, when I swap out the GCC 6010, is to use the 10 gig port as a LAN port, so that I can link to the switch, uplink to the switches, or link to the switches, each with the 10, 10 gig. All right, so I'll have to daisy chain the switches instead of like currently right now. I'm running each switch off. Well, one switch is a rack switch right here, so that's daisy chained off of one of the switches in the main rack. But the two in the rack are being run directly off the GCC. If I swap the 6010, if I swap to the 6020, then I'm going to end up running in a daisy chain. I don't really have a choice. I'm going to go from the 10 gig port on the 6020 to the 10 gig port on the 7822, and then from the 7822 to the 10 gig port on, I'm not the 7822, the 7816, and then to the 10 gig port on the 7822, because my plan is to eventually take the 7803 out of that rack and put the 7822 in the rack. So all three switches, all two switches in the rack will have 10 gig, right? So it'll give me a complete 10 gig backbone in the rack. And then I can save the 2.5 port. Right now, my WAN ports, I have ports 3 and ports 4 configured on the GCC 6020 as WAN, because I only have I have two 1 gig providers. So I could, if I ever decide to up that, I can go use the 2.5 port as a WAN port. So in the future, so that was my thinking as far as wanting to swap it out. So anyway, Robert Ridley, if the GCC has the same CLI like the GWN 78 switches, you should be able to export part of that config and add it to the new device. There would still be a partial amount of manual process, but scriptable. Okay, good to know. Thank you, Robert. Are the GCC backup files in human readable format? I don't know about that. I haven't tried that, but I do know that the like Robert's saying that the GCC are just text, because I was actually going to show you. I'm going to show you one here in a minute. But all right, so let me get signed in here, and then we'll switch screens. Okay. And now let's go here. And that's still the GCC 6010. So we need to go here. Let me get to, is it this one? Nope, wrong one. It's this box. And hold on, let me get back to there. Okay. Now we're looking at the GCC 6020. I'm running the latest firmware. And if I go over to the switch management page, I don't have any switches adopted to it. I have, since I did the testing yesterday, I reset the 7822 back to factory default, but I do have, don't mind the messy desktop, this is my crap computer. I do have here and you're probably going to have a really hard time seeing this. I'll try to zoom in as much as I can, but this is actually, so this is the config file. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Text display, zoom in. There's no shortcut. I tried the typical command shortcut, but it doesn't, Apple Plus, but it doesn't work. So I just gotta bear with me, and I'll do this a couple of times for you. I don't know if it's really making a difference in the stream, but one more time. Let's see. All right, so this is the actual text file from the 7822, and you know, it has my VLAN. This was when it was adopted to the 6010 prior to factory resetting it. So it has my VLANs here. it has, you can see here, it has the static IP on VLAN interface 1. And if it does, if you guys can't see that, I mean, obviously I'm showing it to you here. Just, you know, go with me because I'm not reading anything that's not here. All right, it's showing the trunk port as the uplink, and then it's showing, that was be port 1, and showing the trunking all the VLANs traffic. And then here I have the native VLAN set to, on port 2 set to VLAN 30, which is my voice network, and I have the label for that set to voice. And then for port 1, it's obviously the native VLAN 1, but I set the port label or the port name to uplink. So my thought process was, once the switch is factory reset, all this stuff will be blanked, and then I'll upload it to the switch and see if the process works. So that's that. Now, let me get back to the GCC 6020. Let's go over to take over device. It sees the 7822. So we'll go ahead and we will tell it to take it over. I got to put in the initial password. I hope I remembered that correctly. Okay, it seems to have taken the password, and then this little dot here should go green. It just did. And I'm assuming it's going to take the same IP address as it has been taken, which is 111. Let's just see. Let's refresh that. Yeah, so it stayed with 111. So let's log in. And what should be the default password. I'm going to skip changing the default password for now. I'm going to come down to maintenance. Oh, before I do that, before I restore it, just to confirm, let's go to switching and let's go to VLAN. And now it's seeing my VLANs because it's adopted to the GCC 6020, so it's getting that information from there. But if I go to port settings, you can see everything is PVID 1, all the ports. And if I go to the VLANs themselves, and if we jump into port settings here, yeah, in basic port settings, and you can see here that there are no descriptions. So it doesn't say uplink for port 1 or voice for port 2. So it's been factory reset. All right, so now let's go to maintenance and let's restore the config file from the switch. And let it import. And I'll lose connection to it because the IP address is .7, not .111. So while that's doing, let's give it a chance to restore, and let's go back up to the comments and see what else is going on. Jeremy says, and I hear the fan just kicked on, so it's doing its thing. Makes me wonder if one of the AI models could help build a migration tool. I can't imagine it would be too difficult. Possible. So Robert's saying disable management on the switch, save, remove switch from old GCC, right? Which I did that. Create VLAN configs on the new GCC, which I did that. Then enable management on the switch and import to new GCC. Well, I'm doing something similar to what you're saying. I'm not sure if I'm following that 100%, but I'll reread that again. Let this thing reboot. Let's see. It's not there yet. So yeah, so that's what I've been up against. And I'm going to show you the results now of the process. And then I'm going to show you what I reported to Grandstream and their responses. So we still have 9 people here and 11 likes. So thank you guys. Okay, here we go. So it took on the new IP address of .7, and theoretically now it should take on the password that I changed from the default. So this is not the default password. It's the password that I set. So we're in. And now if I go to switching and I go to port basics, you can see here under port basic settings, it's showing the uplink description. It's showing, now I'm in the switch, it's showing the voice description for ports 1 and 2. So port 1 is the uplink, port 2 is the voice. So it seems like you would think the restore was successful so far by seeing this. And if you go down to VLANs and we go to port settings here, you can see that port 2, which was my voice subnet, is the native PVID is 30, so that is correct. And under IP, well, we know that it took on the 25.7, and we saw that I logged in with the new password. So the restore appeared at this point to be successful, and I was like, awesome. So now I said, if that worked, if I go back to the GCC 6020, it's still showing up as adopted and online. But if I go to click on the switch and I go to port information, you could see if I click on port 1, there is no description. And if I click on port 2, there's no description. And the port profile is still set to all VLANs, not to VLAN 30, which is the voice network. And then I thought, well, since I did things in that particular order, I need to restart the switch. Not the switch. I need to restart the GCC 6020, which I did, but the results did not change. The results were the same. So that's where I'm at with that now. And if I take you into, let's go into here. The reason I don't want to, the reason I was hoping a process like this would work is because I have everything in the rack. I have all the switch ports named, and I don't want to have to factory reset the switches, adopt them to the GCC 6020, and then go in and name all the ports, change all the port profile. I mean, that's all done. I just want to be able to somehow migrate everything over. So let me go here. Let me get into my support ticket. I mean, they were really good. I reported it yesterday, and within an hour to an hour and a half, and they tell you it's a 24-hour window, but by the time you'd hear somebody, but I got a response pretty quickly. So what I did was let me switch over to here, and I got to change this back to there. I keep hitting the wrong camera. Box 2. Let's go to here. Okay. I titled it Potential Bug Found. Let's see, where's the first one? Okay. I gave them my description. An attempt to migrate my switches, currently adopted to a 6010 to a 6020. Here's what I encountered, which I think might be a bug. I went through the process. I outlined the process in steps here that I just showed you. And here are the results. And I explained that the switch configuration itself was correct in the switch, displaying perfectly. All the settings were there, VLANs, port profiles, labels, IP, everything, password. However, none of the settings are being displayed in when I view the switch through the GCC 6020. And then I took screenshots and I attached the screenshots to the ticket. So they responded, thanks for contacting us with a clear breakdown of the process. Screenshots were helpful. And then they asked me for the MAC address of the 6020. And then they said, after restoring the backup, did you reboot the GCC 6020? Can you try adopting the switch again without the backup, then manually configure ports 1 and 2 to see if the settings displayed correctly? Do you recall the firmware version of the 6010 when you created the backup? So I responded immediately to them with all the answers and basically said, yes, I restarted the 6020. I did what they asked. Can I try readopting without the backup? And then manually configure the ports 1 and 2 to see if the settings display. They did not. Do you recall the firmware version of the GCC? I sent them that information. And then, so in response to those, my answers, he writes, I wrote the issue. He wrote, the issue seems to be how the settings are displayed in the 6020 after the restore. And I said, yes, this is the issue. The whole idea behind today's testing is to be able to migrate all of my existing switches to the 6020 without having to manually configure them all. There is a lot of information I have currently in production, and then I named the switches, all adopted to the 6010, and I sent them a photo of that. The 7822 was also adopted to the 6010 and appeared in that list until this morning when I decided to test it out to figure out the best migration option. I sent them the MAC address. I answered their questions. And then I also said it would be great if the controllers, in this case the GCC series, had the same functionality of transferring ownership of switches like controllers do with transferring ownership of the access points. Also would be nice for the Convergence series to have the ability to import-export static IP bindings via a CSV file. Just saying, smiley face. The response I got to that was, thanks for the detailed follow-up. This really helps. Based on your testing, it does look like the issue is specific to how the GCC 6020 UI is displaying the switch config, not the switch itself or the backup. Your suggestions are also taken and appreciated. So I didn't get a chance to respond to that because we were out to dinner with friends when that came in. I'm not sure at this point if that's it for this ticket. I guess I'll respond and say, so is that it? You're just taking the suggestions and accepting the fact that it's a bug? You're going to work on it? Is there going to be a firmware release? I mean, I don't expect them to, troubleshoot with me further. I guess they're saying based on the information I supplied them, but at least give me some closure. Don't leave me with, that, I feel like I'm hanging here a little bit, like at least say like, we're going to take in, besides taking the suggestions say you're going to, don't tell me they're appreciated. Tell me if they're going to be forwarded up the ladder. Tell me if you're going to forward the bug up the ladder, yada, yada, yada. I don't know. So anyway, back to the comments. The GCC Unified System TVJ says still has lots of improvements needed. Robert says System Access Control Management Platform settings. I don't have a GCC, so I can't test the exact scenario. I know you can monitor only in GWN Cloud if you disable the auto configuration delivery. Interesting. System Access Control Management Platforms. Now that would be in the cloud, I imagine. Let me just take a look here. Yeah, I'm not seeing that here. I'm assuming you're talking about the cloud. Let me log back into GDMS. Honestly, I just think it's a bug. I really do. I'm not going to bat my head against the wall anymore with it. I'm going to hope that maybe I hear from them. I'm going to respond to them eventually. I mean, the worst case scenario is I have to manually redo my switches, which I really don't want to, but I think it's worth it in the end to do the upgrade. But I'd like to avoid doing that. Let me see if I'm back in the cloud. Let me just see if, not now. I don't have it, so I can't test the exact unit. Can monitor only in GWN Cloud if you disable the auto configuration. But I'm gonna have to look for that later. I'm honestly not seeing it, but thank you for that. I'm gonna take a screenshot of that so I can go back to that. Okay. Robert's saying the menu is in the switch. Thank you, Robert. Let me take a look there. It's over here on the screen. System. Access control. Management. Platform settings. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, and it's actually off. It says management server settings and it's disabled on the switch. So, all right. Well, thank you for that, Robert, for pointing me in that direction. Yep. Yep. Auto configure delivery is in GW Cloud upper right screen device details. The last time I had major issue, Sean Woods, by the way, hi, Sean, welcome. The last time I had major issue with GrandStream and a bad implementation of a feature, I politely escalated up the chain until I got to the head of CS. He took the issue and sent it to dev team. Okay. Well, like I said, they were, I feel like oh, there we go. The last time I had an issue with the GCC and I had to deal with the original 6010, they were very, very good. They were very, very helpful about it. I mean, oh my God, the guy spent hours with me. We did remote sessions. And I remember they asked for if the developers can have access to my GDMS portal so that they can, work without always me having to be like on the phone. And so, I mean, they were very, very helpful and it did escalate. So I just don't know if with this, will they take it any further? So like I said, I guess I'm just going to follow up, with a response and see. They'll respond. I want just a little bit more closure. That's all. So, and that's about it. So that's pretty much where I'm at with it. And does anybody have any burning desire to comment or not at this point in time? So as far as my network, besides the anomaly with the anti-malware. I'm going to see if I could dig a little deeper with that to find out what list they use. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I'm also going to, test the different settings. I'll turn it back on and test with, drop it down to low and see if that makes a difference. Short of that, I'm not sure what else I can do. I guess a little research is what I can do. We've got 16 people here still, 12 likes. Thank you. If we can hit the like button, I would greatly appreciate it. That's about all that's going on for now. I thought that would be just an interesting conversation to share with you all. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'm not turning my back on the GCC 6020. I just want to be able to migrate everything over easily. I didn't mind reprogramming the 6020. It really didn't take that long to do it from scratch, but I really would just like to be able to migrate the switches if possible. So what am I up to the rest of the day? Well, right now the missus is out. It's 77 degrees. I don't have much going on. It's been so hot that, to get out and do yard work has been like just not like, there's a landscaper that comes and cuts the grass, but I mean, just getting out there and doing the little extras, like picking a couple of weeds here and there in the walkways and stuff. It's been too damn hot to do that. But I'm going to try to do that, providing that it's not raining, because I could tolerate the 77 degree weather. And, but if you're inquiring because of, a potential catch-up phone call that we talked about earlier in the week, I'm here. So we can chat and catch up if you'd like. So in any event, everybody, thank you all so much. We have 14 people here, 12 likes. I'll take it. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I hope to be back again soon. Maybe next week. We'll see. And that's it for now, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay cool if your temperatures are hot. I appreciate you all for being here. And that's it for now. Take care.